Yes, hello, folks. Welcome to a special episode of Global Football Show. Some bonus content here. I'm your host, as always, Phil Brown, joined with my regular co-host, Zach Lowy, as we chat with the fantastic Aage Fjortoft, who's been very kind enough to do the show for me numerous times. It's always wonderful to have him back. Jan, how you doing, my friend?
I'm fine. Glad to be on your show. Follow you on Twitter, so I know what's going on in your life. So I'm more up to date. So you can't surprise me. Yeah, you
I
probably
am
could.
so sorry that you do that because maybe 50 to 60% of what I do on Twitter is designed as a wind up. So, anyway, thank you for taking the time to join us. Lots of stuff I want to talk to you about, of course. I want to talk about Arsenal. I want to talk to you about Sané and some of the stuff that's going on with City, United, your beloved Borough, of course. First of all, I want to talk to you about the Arsenal game the other night. Obviously, 4-1 Manchester City. One of the things that the Premier League prides itself on is its competitive balance. And City worryingly easily took Arsenal apart in that game. And this is supposed to be between two teams that are going for the league title. I think about previous title races between City and Liverpool, United, Arsenal. Very, very competitive games up to the very last. But City, it looks like, are so far ahead of everyone else in that league right now. Whilst it's great for Man City fans, is it a concern for the rest of the league?
Well, first of all, we have to get fact right. As we're speaking, Arsenal is top of the league. There's five guys left of the season. Nice. The old cliche, better to have points than games in hands, and now I'm just using that part of the argument scale. But yes, there were a big difference between the two teams, and I think Pep made a good point at some part of the second part of the season. He said that maybe Arsenal are going to be more hungry than them to get that title closer and closer. Having said that, it's factual too that Manchester City, it seems when they at the end of the season, like the most great teams do, speaking about Bayern Munich, talking about Real Madrid, they seem to be better as closer you come to April and May. And I remember Jupp Heynckes, the legendary Bayern coach, he said, those are the only months that count for clubs like ours. And meaning that it seems that City, when they are in top form, they don't care who they play. They're just winning football games, which is another bad habit. And teams like Arsenal, who are like they need that last step to get onto the top. They seem to every game that is a big battle to get that going. And we remember after when they lost at home to Manchester City, we thought, well, that's it. But then they managed to do some great comebacks, Aston Villa, Bournemouth, and all those kind of things. But when you do that in a longer period, you will end up doing as they're doing, 3 draws in a row, and then they play Manchester City now. But I think that on that night, Manchester City would have taken any team apart, but they beat Bayern Munich 4-1 on aggregate. Bayern Munich, that for 3-4 weeks, I would say they were one of the favourites to get into the Champions League final. So, and I think it is also, and I have to say that I think that some of the treatment, for example, Holding got in the press after that game was not good to read, because Erling Haaland, talking about City on the night, there wouldn't be one player in the whole world who would stop him the way he played against Arsenal. I've never seen him, and I guess I'm one of the guys who've seen him most ever live, and I've never seen him be so top fit. So I think that was unfair as well. So they somehow met Manchester City and Erling Haaland at a very wrong night.
I think you make a good point, Jan. You know, it's clear that William Saliba is a much better defender than Rob Holding. Do Arsenal win this game with Saliba instead of Holding? I'm not so sure. One of the biggest reasons for that is Erling Haaland. This man is playing lights out at the moment. That's 49 goals in all competitions. As we've seen, he's not just a goal scorer. He can also hold up the ball, get some great assists, as we saw the other night. Jan, talk to me a little bit about Haaland's development at City. Do you feel that there have been any ways that City's identity has changed with the introduction of Haaland into this team?
Yeah, and then his plan. Okay.
Sorry about
that was not me. Yes, it's. but I think that evolution by Manchester City, that is all planned, because at the moment when Pep Guardiola took Grealish, that was a sign that he wanted to change some of his play. We can support any club in the world. We can support any rival to Manchester City. We all have to admit that Pep Guardiola is one of the greatest football brains that we've ever seen. And then you can see, yeah, but he hasn't won the Champions League. Yeah, fair enough. Everything is fair enough. But it's quite interesting that he started with Grealish, then he wanted Harry Kane. That was a sign for him, saying that he wanted a big number 9. He didn't have that kind of option. Then he got Erling Haaland. And his team is in evolution. And this, I think that was this at the beginning of the season that Erling Haaland made City worse. I think that is one of the most silly discussions I've heard, because that was a plan for Pep how to get him involved. And when we speak 2 days after the game against Arsenal, we saw how also Erling has developed his game. He's holding up players, been better and better over the seasons. But at the beginning of the season, he had like so few touches. We remember back in the day when he scored 2 in 4 or 5 touches of the first 20 minutes of a game. So I think that is all planned from Guardiola, that he wants to have. He saw that his way of playing had his limits, as you do. And I think that there is a lot of discussions about who are the best managers. And I don't want to be a judge of that, because I think you can only be the best in your generation. How can you compare Johan Cruyff with? Yeah. Well, maybe you could compare with Guardiola because he was his teacher, but still, over the years with Sir Alex Ferguson, managed always to build new teams. You know, it's fine to do it with one team, but you have to define yourself, as Wenger did partly at the beginning of his reign at Arsenal. And I think that Guardiola is doing that in terms of his tactics, because he sees, it's easy to say they got a lot of money, but as we've seen this season with Chelsea, money can't buy you love.
As a Norwegian, Jan, there's been some great Norwegian strikers over the time. Solskjaer, someone called Fjortoft. But you're watching these 2 top teams go head to head with 2 young Norwegians, Haaland and Odegaard, both of whom were young phenoms. I mean, Odegaard at 16 could have picked any football club in the world to play for. They both kind of come through around about the same time. You must be immensely proud watching your small country. You know, I'm disappointed we didn't find an Irish grandmother for either of them. We usually do, but you must be immensely proud that both of Odegaard and Haaland at the levels that they're at.
Yeah, it's a good analysis, because we are a very small country. We are around 5 million people. A lot of the things that what is happening in Norway is defined by our sports athletes, and it's a fantastic time to be alive. We have 2 of the greatest footballers around. We have in athletes, we have a golf, Victor Hovland, who is in the top. We have even a tennis player, and on and on and on with that. But basically, what the 2 have in common, I've been fortunate to be able to follow them closely, is that they have a fantastic attitude to the game. Both are not your typical glory star player. They have worked very hard. As you were saying, Martin Ødegaard went another way. You could see by Erling, he did step by step, great choices with Bryne to Molde. Molde had Solskjaer. He went then to Salzburg, who had have a tradition of developing players in a great manner. Then he went to Dortmund, who had a tradition of making good players into great players. And now Manchester City, because they needed that number 9. They were desperate to get that type of player. And he knew, of course, as well, at a club like that, you will get a lot of goal-scoring opportunities. But Martin Ødegaard went the other way, because I was team manager for Norway at the time. And then there were like 4 big clubs that he can go to, but he chose to go to Real Madrid basically because they had a second team. The 3 other teams didn't have a second team, and the second team was coached by a very unknown coach called Zinedine Zidane. So I remember back in the days, we kind of compared that with, you're a good footballer, you want to develop, which college are you going to? Yeah, look for the college with the best teacher. And then he had some downside going to Holland of a Sociedad, and now he's at Arsenal. He didn't have his best game on Wednesday, but what a player Martin is.
Norway aren't just skilled at producing great fjords and salmon, but also some amazing footballers. Another player who's having a great season is Fredrik Arsnes. Joined Benfica from Feyenoord last summer, has been used in a variety of positions, including left wing, central midfield, and as well as right back recently. Jan, what have you made of Arsnes's development under Roger Schmidt, and how important do you think he's going to be as Benfica look to close out the season with their first Primera Liga title in 4 years?
Yeah, good observation. Arsnes, he's also from my region. He's from the village where my father is from, like 20 minutes from where my house is in Norway. So I followed him closely when he started at HUD, which is our local heroes team, and he won the FA Cup final quite surprisingly. You will say that he's a bit underestimated as a player because it is a bit in a shadow of the two guys. But he said that the other day when he was with the national team, he said, "How many times can I be underestimated?" I think that was a great answer. And as we are speaking of Benfica, there is another one called Andreas Schjeldrup, who is also a young lad who is playing there. And I think that what they all have in common, they have looked for clubs that can take them to the next step. And we saw Fredrik now scoring in the Champions League, and Schjeldrup gets some minutes now going. So we expect them to take even the next step for us. The problem with a small nation like Norway is that we are so depending on generations. We are so depending of what kind of skills do they develop, because it doesn't help us if we have a Arsnes, Ødegaard, Schjeldrup, Haaland, if we don't have defenders, if we don't have a proper goalkeeper who can play all the time. So that is a big problem now. And back in the days when I played in the 90s, and I played just before we got those great strikers in with Iversen, Solskjaer, Flo, and Karev, and a lot of these young. But then we had loads of defenders. But now somehow we don't have defenders. So that is a bit worrying, because it's time for us to come to a championship again. And but as you were saying, Arsnes, he's got a cool head, got that vision. He's never stressed with the ball. If he loses the ball 3 times, he's desperate to get him the ball the 4th time. So great player.
Is it merely a coincidence that, I mean, as you quite rightly point out, Norway have always produced really good players. I mean, you go back to the 94 team, it was very, very good as well. Is it merely a coincidence that you've got all these really good young players coming through? Did something change in Norway that this is a consequence of?
Yeah, it's I guess a consequence. I mean, luck is a funny kind of version of working hard somehow. But I think that they help each other. When we were back in the 90s, we had the more or less the same revolution in Norway. Suddenly we were so good in so many different sports that made it easier to take the next step. Of course, you need good coaches. We had in the 90s. Don't want to talk about a lot about the 90s, but we have to compare it because that was the last time we had a lot of talents, and we had great coaches in Norway. We had Olsen, who was the national coach, and Egil Olsen. Yeah, and then we had Nils Arne Eggen, who made Rosenborg into the Champions League for 12 years in a row or something, which was unbelievable. And so I think they kind of stick together. And I think there's also, we've had, I don't like AstroTurf playing on a top level, but the AstroTurf has made Norway have pitches all over the place. And AstroTurf, kind of, the consequences of that is that you develop a lot of players with technical ability. The disadvantage is that you kind of forget that 1-against-1, these center half that win you duels. And I did an exercise with my son some years ago, and I said we're going to see how many, because there are too many of them in our top league playing on AstroTurf, and I will see how many duels, how many situations are there that won't happen on a grass pitch, and we had to stop because it's enormous and it's in another sport. But the way of developing player, I think that has done Norway good. And it's also when Martin is 16 and go to Real Madrid, I mean, that is also a mental barrier that you see, wow, it's possible to come from a small city of Norway and go into Real Madrid. And I think that is a bit underestimated. You see that in smaller countries, which is we can compare us with, if Ireland, Austria, Belgium and Switzerland. I think that you need someone who goes ahead, that you who open the doors for you.
100%.
Jan, I wanted to shift gears to your former club, Eintracht Frankfurt. Been an interesting year for them. They've played Champions League football for the first time in 60 years. They're currently in the DFB Pokal semifinals, but currently 9th in the table, have an uphill battle as they look to get back into Europe. They are all but confirmed to lose Daichi Kamada on a free transfer, and I have a feeling that they're going to be selling Randall Kolo Muani for a club record fee this summer. Can you talk to me a little bit about Kamada and Kolo Muani? How big have they been for Die Adler this season, and where do you see these two players shaping up next season?
Well, first of all, I think that is quite naturally after you winning the Europa League. Was one of the greatest experiences I've had in my job as an interviewer. I was doing Frankfurt against Glasgow. I was told that I will do the winner. So you can imagine which team I supported. And then, like you said, then they played the Super Cup against Real Madrid. They played in the Champions League. So I guess that the club is not that far that you can kind of keep that level, or that you will have some sort of reaction. So hopefully now they just save their season in a okay way. And they will keep at least some of the key persons in the management. They will keep Glasner. They will keep Krösche. But as you were saying, some of the players will be leaving. Kamada is one of them. He will going on a free transfer. He's been instrumental. But having said that, that is a part of being Eintracht Frankfurt. That is a part of that club when you don't take the next step. Remember back in the days when they have those three musketeers, with Jovic and Rebic and Aller, and they were all sold in one season. And 1.5 years later, they win in the Europa League. So that is a part of being Eintracht Frankfurt. In terms of Muani, he's a young lad. I guess he's the buy of the season. He's a rookie of the season. And the last thing we've heard now is that Bayern Munich see him as an alternative because they don't have a number 9. So they're coming back to him. Eintracht Frankfurt say they want 100 million for him, at least. 100 million is that is the easiest amount to say these days in the transfer windows. And you always want 100 million. So hopefully stay. But having said that, I've been a player myself. I know when you start packing, that's time for you to go. But that is being a part of being Eintracht Frankfurt, because if they now have stayed in Europa League, or they have stayed in the Champions League, it will be easier to hold him, and then they just have to find a new Muani. They have to find a new striker, and that is the part of being a club that is nearly there.
Just a quick
follow-up. Germany. Sorry, go ahead, Zach. Go ahead. Sorry.
Just a quick follow-up, John. I know that there's a lot of Bayern fans who've been torn on him on whether he should come, but do you think that Kolo Muani has what it takes to fill to become the long-term heir to Robert Lewandowski and fill that striker position at Bayern Munich?
Well, first of all, they don't have a striker without except Choupo-Moting, who has been a lot of injured, and all due respect to him, is one of those players who have taken the next step for them. But they need a number 9. It's so telling that they haven't even the number 9 shirt at Bayern doesn't exist. They did everything they did to get Erling Haaland. Of course, then Robert Lewandowski didn't like that, and he pushed his movement. Remember, they sold Robert Lewandowski, Bayern, and they said that they're going to be more flexible without him. They took Mané, that I guess we'll talk more about, and still they don't have a number 9. So first they said Muani is not that kind of player that we need, because they feel that you need a player even better than him to hold the ball up, because when Bayern playing, there's not a lot of space that Muani loves to do. But having said that, I've seen during the season as Muani has developed as a player. He looks like a finished article than he was when he came. So I think that would be a great signing for them. But as an Eintracht fan, I just hope they won't get him.
I want to ask you, if I could, about the potential Manchester United takeover, which hopefully is nearing its completion. What do you expect will be the outcome there, and what do you think how do you think a takeover will change Manchester United?
Well, now the goings get tough, because the die-hard English football fans have said before, okay, City, okay, Newcastle, yeah, it's okay. Okay, Arsenal as well, because the owners keep behind. We don't see them. But now the goings get tough for Manchester United, and could have Qatari owners. Liverpool, we're talking about them having different owners from different countries. Now the goings get tough, and I'm more, if I may start from a general point of view, that English football at the moment have foreign owners, foreign managers, foreign coaches, foreign players, and if I may say, foreign viewers, because the TV views around the world is enormous. So the last thing that is left is English football fans, and as we speak now this week, I've been to 2 football games. I think that the Etihad atmosphere on Wednesday was very good. I went to Tottenham last night, great atmosphere in a very modern stadium. So somehow we still, because I say we, because all that love English football, we have a responsibility to keep that tradition going. So I just hope for the Manchester United fans that they will get owners that will be dedicated to develop the club. I must say it's embarrassing when I see Old Trafford. Old Trafford, I mean, a football stadium, one of the most iconic football stadiums in the whole world. There haven't been one margin of development, nothing. There's nothing been done with the club. And people may say, yeah, but that is not the main thing, is that to get players. Yeah, but the Glazers have put money in. There's been a bit mismanagement and the recruiting hasn't been good enough. But I mean, there is, for all to see, is Old Trafford. That need to be renovated. So it's a mirror of the historic, iconic position that Manchester United got in the world. I'm a fan of Ten Hag. I think that if you give Ten Hag the time, he will kind of sort out the culture at Manchester United again. He could end up this season with 2 titles and top 4. That is a great season for Manchester United as we are now. But I think there's also, in respect to the fans, I think that the lack of information is not good enough. I don't think that owners should just go in. First of all, if I may say, that I've said it many times before, but I think that owner of a club is one of the worst titles I know, because a club is owned by their fans, is owned by their history, is owned by the people who love the club. There's nobody can own the club. And especially here in Europe, you can't take a club and move it to Oklahoma and make Manchester United Oklahoma. So that is one thing. But I think the lack of information, there's just waiting. Today, as we speak, there is another deadline going on. I think that the Manchester United fans now should expect, and they should get the respect needed to be informed what blah, blah, blah is going on.
Agreed. Zach, you got one more question? We'll let Jan go.
Jan, if you had told the average person at the start of the season that...
froze. I want to ask you quickly.
Sorry, you guys hear me now?
Folks, and you got to run. Your beloved Middlesbrough.
No. It's okay.
You guys hear me?
I think Zach froze. I'm not sure what happened there. But Michael Carrick at Middlesbrough. Let me ask you, because he's doing a fantastic job. He is someone that I know Manchester United fans hold dear, and it's great to see him do well at Middlesbrough. Tell me what you think of Michael Carrick, and could he take him up in the playoffs this year?
Oh, it could, definitely. It was hard for me because two of my former clubs, Sheffield United and Middlesbrough, was fighting out that battle for the automatic promotion. So I couldn't say anything for a while. But now we got Sheffield United up to the Premier League, which is great. And if you see, it's quite interesting because it's so Middlesbrough expected to be there in terms of being one of the favorites before the season, and then you got a Luton up there, you got Coventry, and it's Millwall, and that is quite interesting as well. But yes, Carrick has been fantastic for us and for Middlesbrough. It reminds me a bit of when Brian Robson came there. There was that Manchester United connection. Clayton Blackmore came there, Viv Anderson came there. So I'm very glad to see that. Middlesbrough is a fantastic club. Middlesbrough is a club that deserved to be in the Premiership, and Carrick, I think what will be his best kind of ability to get that over the goal line is that he's been there so many times before, and that should not be underestimated. Knowing that pressure that you need to win the decisive games, and there are a lot of them in the playoff situation they are in now.
Zach, I'll give you the last one. We'll let Jan go. Get back to this evening. Thank you, Jan. Much appreciated.
No problem.
Jan, if you told an average person at the start of the season that the closest title race of Europe's top 5 leagues would be the Bundesliga, I think they would probably recommend you to go to an insane asylum. But Nevertheless, we've got a very exciting title race in the Bundesliga. Borussia Dortmund obviously have the title in their own hands, but you can never count out Bayern Munich. Talk to me a little bit about this title race. Who do you see winning it? And what do you think has gone wrong for Bayern in these past few weeks under Thomas Tuchel?
Wow, now we can sit here for another 30 minutes. But first of all, Bayern Munich is one of the most fascinating clubs in the world because they are a family club with a global brand and with a global recognition. But there are so many people in and around the club who are in the media all the time. And then you have the moles that every media will have in their club. And lately, I think that all pressure have got to them a bit. They look drained. And Thomas Tuchel said after the 3-1 loss at Mainz, he said that we looks like we played 80 games already. Dortmund thing is that typical Bayern is to win games when they're bad, and typical Dortmund is to lose games when they are good. So I think that's kind of sum up the end of the season. As we are speaking now, in like 1 hour or so, Dortmund is playing Bochum away. I'm not saying they're losing, but it would have been typical Dortmund. And then on Sunday, Bayern is playing Hertha Berlin. And so what people should watch in the run-in now from the last, I think, 5 games, 4 of them, they play to different times. I think that will make a bit out because this is not a matter of who is playing, what kind of system, the pressure. It's all about the mind games now. And as you're saying, Dortmund got 3 home games. They have 2 home games after this Bochum game. They can put pressure on Bayern. Bayern is playing away in Bremen. And they're playing Leipzig. Marco Rose, their former coach of Dortmund, is there, can make them champion. But in the last game of the season is Augsburg against Dortmund. That's the place where always Bayern ending up coming on the top of things. And if people who are listening know the story, Bayer Leverkusen back in the days, they just needed to win in Unterhaching. That is just outside Munich. What happened? Unterhaching won. So it's very, very open. And I'm a big fan of both the Bundesliga and the Premier League, and that the Bundesliga is going to be that exciting. I didn't know that for 3 weeks ago because when Thomas Tuchel came in with a mission to give them the treble, and now he'd be happy if we win the league. So I'm so looking forward to this end race in Germany.
Jan, thank you for not judging me on my Twitter decorum. I appreciate that. And I love your ESPN FC show every week. Really
Thank
do
you.
enjoy that.
Thank you.
My son watches it every week. So thank you so much for very kindly giving up your Friday evening to do this. I would love to get you back sometime. Enjoy the rest of the season and say hello to Marcus for me.
I will, and it was a pleasure to be on as always, and we speak soon.
Absolutely,
Cheers.
gentlemen.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, Jan.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.